Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by OnlineGreatBooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas. I'm Scott Hamprick.
I'm Karl Shute.
And today, on the Online Great Books podcast, we are going to talk about Ian Fleming's first James Bond novel, Casino Royale. But before we do that, I want you to find on your phone there, we're talking to you right now through some sort of an app. Maybe it's Overcast. Maybe it's the iTunes podcast app. Maybe it's Google Play. Maybe it's Stitcher. Maybe it's Spotify. But go and find the share button. And you've got a thread on your text messages of like you and 3 or 4 friends. Just hit share and post that to that thread where you guys like share memes and fart jokes and stuff. Share our show with those friends. That would be so much help to us.
You would be an information terrorist.
What does that mean?
Spreading our podcast. Maybe they don't want to hear about us, but you're just spreading us.
That's good.
Like a virus.
I especially want people that don't want to hear me to hear me. I'm thinking of my wife when I say that.
The only time my wife ever listens to me is on the podcast.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, she just goes walking. I can't talk, got to go for a walk. And then she puts the headphones on and listens to me talk to you about interesting stuff.
And don't forget to go to onlinegreatbooks.com/podcast and join our mailing list. We'll send you some interesting stuff. I promise. What about James Bond, Karl?
He's so cool.
Do we want to yell about libertarians first? Is that boring?
Sure, go ahead.
I have been roundly attacked by the libertarian crowd for the show we did on the essay for the restoration of property.
Note, I have not been attacked at all by anybody.
Right. Which isn't right.
Either I'm not doing it right or I am doing it right.
The main thing I'm getting attacked with is, one, capitalism leads to these standards of living, and high standards of living are why why infant mortality has gone down. And I say that there's correlation there, but they can't show causality. I say that there's nothing about industrialization, the Watt steam engine, or the iPhone, or any other thing that you can point to like that would have been a requisite to the discovery of antibiotics or almost any other thing that materially improves life. And by the way, I don't think the iPhone improves it, even though I'm probably talking to you right now, dear listeners, through an iPhone. I'm not sure that most technology actually improves the human condition. And then the other thing is they always we don't want to use government to a good end because somebody later might use it to a bad end. I'm just so tired of that. If you're a libertarian, how do you use political power to protect a culture or create a political environment that you find just?
Well, let's do the points in reverse. On the second point, if you love liberty, and I do, you have to realize that liberty only grows in a certain kind of soil.
Magic soil?
Well, you need a culture. Okay? If you're so devoted to liberty that you don't do anything to protect the culture, you're watering the tree that's going to end up hanging you. Mm. To be 100% pure, no government libertarian might work for one generation, but then it's all going to fall apart because you didn't do anything to preserve the culture out of which you yourself sprang. Sprang. Whatever the...
Sprung. Yeah.
Guy in the gym last night corrected my grammar.
Sounds like a good gym.
I was mad. I was hot. Did you just correct my grammar? He's like, yeah. I swore at him. And for the first point, I think it's a misunderstanding, at least of what Belloc is going after. It's not what you think capitalism is not what he's arguing against. Yeah. This is not you making a product and selling it to your friends or to the people in your town and making a living. It's the aggregation of things into larger and larger economies of scale that then use the levers of government against everybody else. Mm-hmm. That Walmart and Target got to stay open while everybody else had to shut down during coronavirus. That was not capitalism.
That ain't cool, bro.
But that's not capitalism like libertarian friends think. But that's what Belloc is talking about.
Yeah.
When he says capitalism, that's what he means.
You know, a couple shows ago, I yelled about the Constitution too, about how people think that our country is what it is because of the Constitution. You know, I said that it was probably because of this free land and the difficulty of, you know, communication and transportation on the frontiers during the 1800s. You know, and I was thinking about that as I lay in bed at 4:30 in the morning. We had distributism in the edges of the United States for almost 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why it was a dynamo. Maybe it wasn't the telegraph. Maybe it wasn't the Constitution. Maybe it wasn't the train. Maybe it was the fact that everybody worked their ass off on their own behalf for their own gain for about 150 years.
Yeah, Stephen Ambrose wrote a book on Crazy Horse and Custer. I didn't take anything really away about Crazy Horse and Custer, but when he talked about the yearly increases, the GDP increases in the 1800s, nowadays, what if we have a year that's 3%? That's a good year.
Mm-hmm.
They were like 50%.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of things look good when you have 50% growth.
Yeah,
I think you could have transplanted the Tsar of Russia into Washington and had him run us like Imperial Russia, and with that much undeveloped land and opportunity, and he might have done pretty well.
Yeah.
That's probably a bad example. Someone who say actually Russia had all those and they didn't do it. So
Right.
That's probably the worst example.
But your point is taken. It's really hard to parse out exactly what the roots of whatever sort of American success there have been. But I do know, the only thing I know for sure, I know a little bit more than Socrates. The only thing I know for sure is that everybody's lying all the time and they don't know it. That's the only thing I know. So when I read whatever I read in my history textbook, I know they were lying. You know, whatever PBS says on that one show, American Masters, they're lying. They may not know it. All I know is I'm just not being told the real story. That's all I know.
Yeah, well, you might have to dig a bit.
Yeah.
What are we reading today?
We're reading about the Cold War.
Ian Fleming, Casino Royale. This is the second time I've read it, and I finished this one and I immediately ordered Live and Let Die. It was a lot of fun. It's not quite like the movies. If you've seen James Bond movies, like in eating, you want to have less processed foods. In reading your spy novels, you want to have less processed spy novels. Go back to the original. The movies are some of them good, some of them bad. They all are adaptations. They're all different. They'll be changed for modern sensibilities as opposed to sensibilities of 1953. That having been said, I think the Daniel Craig ones are pretty good. They're better for the book than, say, certainly the Roger Moore stuff, which was all just silly.
Pretty silly.
Talking about this with one of my kids. I do my show prep with my kids, and she says, James Bond doesn't sound very nice. And I said, exactly.
Yeah, he's not.
He's not. He's an assassin. You know, he's a spy. That's what a 00 is. It's a license to kill.
I know which kid that was. That's so funny.
Which kid do you think it was?
It's got to be Sarah.
Yep. Yeah, James Bond's not very nice. No, he's not. He's not.
There have to be unnice people around so we can have nice things.
Mm-hmm. And he's a war veteran, and it was a pretty bad war. And when was this book written? 53. Ian Fleming Publications. So he's been in the spy game since the war for 8 years. Yeah, it's not nice. But it's sure fun to read.
Yeah, this is fun in a different way than the movies are fun. You know, the movies are fun because of the music, the travel stuff, the locale, the gadgets, the hot chicks, you know, just that whole aesthetic. There are attractive women in here. There is travel in here, but it's a whole different game though, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of it's about the character of these people, of the sort of person that you can imagine would be good at this. Now, Fleming himself, I don't know all of his details. He was involved in espionage in World War II. So he has some sort of knowledge of this sort of thing. I don't know how true to life it is. I think most spy work's probably really boring. You know, sitting in an office, going through official communiques, trying to find a pattern.
Digging through trash cans.
Yeah. James Bond is kind of the field agent guy, the one that gets to have the fun. Except, well, I don't know if it's fun.
He's really not a spy, though. Like, he doesn't gather intelligence. Maybe sometimes he's a saboteur, but he's mostly about, killing people.
Right. He's
really not a spy.
Yeah. There is a character in here, Le Chiffre. Now, fair warning, there are French words in this book. I'm going to mispronounce every single one of them. Yeah. Even if I knew how to, I would do it on purpose. I don't know how to pronounce French. But there's this guy, Le Chiffre, I don't know if you pronounce the last syllable, who is a communist.
The cipher.
Yeah, the cipher. He's a communist and he's got money trouble. And so they're going to try to put him out of business by gambling, which is a fun setup right there.
Yeah.
The setting is a casino. And so I remember when I was a kid, my dad got for us, I was thinking I needed to do this for my kids, got for us a casino set with a roulette wheel and crap table and poker chips and everything. So we learned how to play all these. I never learned how to play Baccarat, but there's just this aura to it. Probably comes from this book. The aura of the casino being a place where, shady people say important things in corners and beautiful women come by and give you a kiss as you do your gambling. And it's from this book, I think, that image of what a casino should be. There's a lot of mood in this that I like.
It's all aesthetic, right?
The first paragraph, the scent and smoke and sweat of a casino are nauseating at 3 a.m. Then the soul erosion produced by high gambling, a compost of greed and fear and nervous tension, becomes unbearable, and the senses awake and revolt from it. James Bond suddenly knew that he was tired. He always knew when his body or his mind had had enough, and he always acted on the knowledge. This helped him to avoid staleness and the sensual bluntness that breeds mistakes. So there's your introduction to James Bond. 3 a.m. at the casino, and he knows that he's starting to get tired. But he's got enough self-awareness to know that he's getting tired.
At 3 a.m. At 10:47 p.m., I'd be like, all right, time for me to cash out. 3 a.m. Can't make it.
Well, he's had 70 cigarettes that day.
It's true.
That's a lot of cigarettes, even if you're committed. How many packs is that?
It's 3.5 packs.
Yeesh. Well, the plot is he's there. So the Chiffre has, he's been playing with the company's money. He's a head of a labor union somewhere in East France, I think, and he's been investing in brothels. And the French government shut down the brothels, and so he's losing his money. And if he loses all his money, he'll get killed by SMERSH, Death to Spies. It's an acronym for the Russian. I'd have a better chance pronouncing the Russian, but it's 2 words that mean death to spies. And he needs to make his money back.
There's so much here already. This is not nonfiction, but maybe, I don't know. But Fleming knew some things. He was in the trade. He knew some things, and I can imagine that some of this stuff would happen. The communists found this rootless, stateless man after World War II. He had been in a concentration camp and had a number on himself, on it tattooed on him, and he was stateless. And so they gave him a stateless passport, which I thought was interesting. There would have been a lot of people after World War II who had fled their home. The map was redrawn in Eastern Europe. They fled their home, and maybe the country they left in 1939 or 40 or something like that didn't even exist when 1945 struck, and the war was over. Maybe Russia maybe swallowed it up. Maybe the West swallowed it up. So he's a stateless man, and he's given a passport for the stateless, and he says, "I'm but a number," and so he uses the number, the Chiffre, as his name. Well, the communists pick him up. He's a rootless, stateless, weird person, and they fund him. And his mission is to kick off a labor union, which he's going to subvert to communist purposes. McCarthy's right. And then, but him being the kind of person that does that sort of thing, he's flawed. and he steals the state's money and invests it for his own benefit in a bunch of brothels, which at the time would have been legal. France made them illegal, wiped him out immediately. So he had, 20, 25 million francs left, and he's got to pay the state funds back immediately, because if he doesn't, the state will be aware of his embezzlement, and the Soviet communist government will kill him, and he knows it. So the only way for him to make that money back fast is at the casinos. The stakes are so high, it's double or nothing for him. Like, he has to make the money back or lose it all, because if he doesn't make the money back, he's dead anyway, so he's okay with losing it all. High stakes for him. It jives, Karl.
Yeah, well, and so this is an opportunity for the English to take him out. All you got to do is beat him at gambling.
Yeah, and they want to take him out because it will humiliate the Soviets. It will undermine that entire operation, Le Chiffre, whatever, has been working on setting up, and just generally be a pain in the ass to the Soviets. So they're very interested in that. Now, yeah, this is the silly part. I can imagine a guy embezzling. He's already a weird crook, I can imagine him embezzling and then going down to the casino to try to get his get-backs and then flee and go to Mexico, or something like that. That kind of makes sense. But the idea that then some opposition government's like, we're going to send another guy to the table to gamble and beat him out, that's pretty dumb. Wouldn't it be easier to rig the game?
I don't know.
Because, Bond might not win. And they acknowledge that from the very beginning. But it seems like it'd be easier to just subvert the game.
Can you subvert Baccarat?
I think you could.
It's kind of like blackjack was how I understood the game.
Yeah.
You have to get an 8 or a 9, and certain cards count and certain cards don't. So somewhat similar to blackjack, having to get 21 or as close as you can.
Yeah. But if you get 19, you only look at that last digit, that's a 9. And an 8 or a 9 is a natural. You just win. If you flip up an 8 or a 9, you win. You've got 2 or 3 cards to get it. So it would be hard to rig, but you could put 12, you could put 5 people at that table perhaps. But it seems like there'd be a better way than just sending one slick down there to get it done. I don't know.
Well, and they know who he is right at the beginning. Yeah, it's kind of silly but fun. It's a good setup. You get to have a setting in a casino. You wonder, had Fleming been to casinos like this? Must have.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking at the photo of him in the back of my edition. He's sitting there with his cigarette and his bow tie, and he looks just like you imagine the character would look. We get to see some supposed communications between S and M in the British government. And in my book on page 13, so they propose the counter operation. We can't just kill him. We need to humiliate him. We therefore recommend that the finest gambler available to the service should be given the necessary funds and endeavor to outgamble this man. The risks are obvious and the possible loss to the secret funds is high, but other operations on which large sums have been hazarded have had fewer chances of success, often for a smaller objective. And then this one was funny. If the decision is unfavorable, the only alternative would be to place our information and our recommendations in the hands of some French word that I can't pronounce, the French Bureau, or our American colleagues of the Combined Intelligence Agency in Washington. Both of these organizations would doubtless be delighted to take over the scheme.
Right. If we don't do it, they will.
A little bit of sarcasm. S and M, you never learn who they are. You have letters. If you've watched the movies, Q for the quartermaster, M for whatever M stands for. You're not supposed to know who they really are because they're secret agents.
Mm-hmm.
The character of Bond is interesting. He's sitting there in the casino and he's thinking about the desk behind which the guy who's got all the money sits. The case, I guess. As for robbing the case, in which Bond himself was not personally concerned but only interested, he reflected that it would take 10 good men, that they would certainly have to kill 1 or 2 employees, and that anyway you probably couldn't find 10 non-squeal killers in France or in any other country for the matter of that. So he's sitting there in the casino plotting how to rob the place. Not because he wants to.
Haven't you done that?
Maybe.
Yeah.
What crimes have you plotted?
All of them.
If you were going to do something bad, how would you do it? Well, that's the sort of person he is.
Everything's just a problem to be solved.
Yeah.
Is he unscrupulous?
Yes. The Chiffre is a spy. There are other spies in here. He's a spy. Which one's the good guy?
Well, he wonders that later, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to that. At the end of the first chapter, the description of him is, let's see, his last action was to slip his right hand under the pillow till it rested under the butt of the .38 Colt Police Positive with the sawn barrel. Then he slept, and with the warmth and humor of his eyes extinguished, his features relapsed into a taciturn mask, ironical, brutal, and cold. Yeah, not nice.
No. This is not the debonair, sort of Roger Moore, Sean Connery character here. He's a blunt instrument, which is still great. It's so tough to read this because, I've read this. This is probably the third time I've read it, but it's just, the movie's so vivid, and I have seen Bond movies way more than I've read the Bond books. So I can't get away from the movies. He's Sean Connery in my mind when I read this, even though I don't want it to be.
He should be Daniel Craig if he's any of them.
You think so?
I think Sean Connery's too funny.
Yeah, that's probably so.
I watched the Casino Royale movie, the most recent one, twice in the last week. And I know he's just an actor, but there's points when he looks pretty cold.
Yeah.
Which is, I thought was more like the book. Well, so he goes to the hotel, the Hotel Splendide.
Of course.
Pretends to be a planter from Jamaica with a lot of money. I thought it was interesting how he sketches out all of the people at the table. He's figuring out what they're going to gamble like just by looking at them. Well, we meet the girl.
Mm-hmm.
Vesper Lind.
Yeah, so she's been sent by the government to render whatever aid she can. She works for the English government, and he's not real keen on working with a lady.
What the hell do they want to send me a woman for? He said bitterly. Do they think this is a bloody picnic? He's not too excited about it.
He's not Marlowe.
His opinion of women is that they are recreation. They're not something that he's seriously concerned with. She can only get in the way. His last thoughts in the end of chapter 4, he's thinking, well, it's bad words to call a woman this. Bitch, said Bond. Then remembering the Munces, he said, bitch again more loudly and walked out of the room.
Is he hard-boiled?
He's hard-boiled, but just that word's going to come back again later in the book.
Yeah.
His first thought of her is that. Gosh, there's going to be spoilers. If you listen to the OGB podcast, we're going to spoil the hell out of this. So if you have not read Casino Royale and you think you're going to, you might want to pause.
Yep.
So Bond's relationship with her, it's detached. The way it's described. I'm looking in my book at page 32. Bond felt her presence strongly. We have the description of her. So he knows that she's attractive. Later on, Bond was excited by her beauty and intrigued by her composure. The prospect of working with her stimulated him. At the same time, he felt a vague disquiet. On impulse, he touched wood. And later in that chapter, as a woman, he wanted to sleep with her, but only when the job had been done.
Because he's a pro.
Yeah, she's going to be in the way, and the fact that she's attractive is going to be in the way of getting the job done.
Yep.
It's a little bit of a sociopath.
Bond?
I think so. Well, I don't know. He's able to put all of his emotions in a box and turn them off.
Or is he just hyper-rational? Like, he recognized that he might be influenced by her and her beauty and not be on top of his game, and then decides that's not a good idea and sets it aside. He might be a sociopath, for sure, but I'm not sure I see it there.
I don't know. They're like neighboring countries. Hyper-rational.
Right. Okay, fair enough. It's like, which one's the U.S. and which one's Canada? Sociopathy and hyper-rationality.
Yeah. They try to blow him up.
Which is awesome.
Were they two Bulgarians, I think?
Bulgars. You know how they are.
I had a Bulgarian guy at the gym for a while. I would try to make Bulgarian jokes with him. And he'd always just say, yeah.
Lay one on me. I'm off on my vulgar jokes.
It's a rural country in Europe. It's not very rich. It's not very big.
So Arkansas jokes, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the Arkansas of Europe. And he'd say, yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
He wouldn't fight back or anything. It was all in good fun.
I like all of these old national names, like Bulgars, Balts. You know, I like all that.
Mm-hmm.
We need to bring that back.
What would an Oklahoman be?
Well, we're Okies, man.
An Okie, not a Sooner?
No, there are only a few of those. I don't know what this damn book is. Is it a mystery? Is it an adventure? Is it a new genre? Is it a detective novel? Is it a romance?
I'll tell you what it is. It is a drink recipe.
Oh.
Surrounded with a novel.
All right. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, we should talk about that, because this is in chapter 7, where he's going into start the game. He meets Felix Leiter, who's the CIA guy. I think it's probably the first time you get James Bonds in my book on page 43. So Bond insisted on ordering Leiter's Haig and Haig on the rocks, and then he looked carefully at the barman. A dry martini, he said. One, in a deep champagne goblet. Oui, monsieur. Just a moment. 3 measures of Gordon's, 1 of vodka, half a measure of Quina Lillet. Shake it very well until it's ice cold, then add a large, thin slice of lemon peel. Got it? And there you go. That's the Vesper Martini.
Mm-hmm.
And it's delightful. And you can't actually make it like he makes it, because Quina Lillet can't be gotten. And I looked it up, and apparently that was a vermouth that had quinine in it, like a gin and tonic. So it would have tasted differently than the way we make it, but you ought to try this drink.
I like him shaken. You know, nerds will tell you, oh, no, you have to stir it. I like it shaken. I like it aerated, and I like how it chips up the ice and you end up with some ice chips in it.
Mm-hmm.
I like having a little bit of that water in there.
There's some martini masochism out there where vodka martini, dry.
As your lips.
Just whisper vermouth at it.
Mm-hmm.
Or think about vermouth. Don't actually put any vermouth in it.
Yeah, that's wrong.
No, that's not a good drink. That's not a good drink. I don't even like it with olives.
Cocktail onions are the right way. I think they call that a Gibson.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Well, I like that lemon peel.
Yeah.
That's magic. That little bit of citrus oil on the top of your martini. But you're going to have to find a vermouth, because you can't get the right vermouth. So, I don't know. I tried this one, and even my beloved spouse liked it. I can't pronounce it. Cochi Vermouth di Torino. Real nice. Gives it a little bit of a yellow color, which Bond says later in the book it's got a yellow color. It's delightful. I've been having them the last week. I got some Gordon's. Got some good Russian vodka. Because you can't just use the ordinary vodka. It's got to be good quality. And it should be maybe rye.
Reagent quality.
Mm-hmm. And it's a delightful drink. The problem is it's so good you'll want to drink 2, but you probably shouldn't. Yep.
You lose your shoes. Unless you're him. You drink 2 of those, 3 of those, smoke 70 cigarettes, you can gamble to 4 a.m. and win. Not me. I think this is basically a detective novel, but the difference is in the strong aesthetic choices the author makes.
Sure. Well, if it's a detective novel, what's the mystery?
Well, there's a caper.
For me, the mystery is, so at the very end of the book, when Vesper gets grabbed by the bad guys and doesn't get molested or killed.
Yep.
Like, why? Why didn't they hurt her? Something's weird about this. So there's a bit of a mystery there. There's not much mystery to beating Le Chiffre at cards.
Yeah, it's a pretty mindless game, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Baccarat.
In the movie, they made it poker, which is probably a better thing because you get to play with the whole bluffing
right
thing. Here, it's mostly chance and picking your time to make the bet.
So, if you make it poker in the movie, it changes it entirely. Because in the book, it's clear that it's on the turn of a card, and in fact, it comes down to that. And Bond does bust out the bad man, so he's broke, and he knows that he can't replenish the bank, and his embezzlement will be found out. And the SMERSH organization, which is really just the agency that the Soviets use to keep their spies honest. But it's the agency that they use to police their spy network, and he knew that they were going to come and get him. So once he's busted out, at that point he's a caged animal. Like there's nothing he won't do.
So we meet Felix Leiter. Felix Leiter shows up in some of the other stories. He's the CIA guy. Bond reflected that good Americans were fine people, and that most of them seemed to come from Texas.
Fair enough.
I'm not sure what that means. Is that most good Americans come from Texas? Or most Americans come from Texas?
Or most of the good people that he has met has come from Texas. I don't know.
I'm always thinking about the guns.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a 25 ACP Beretta.
It's small.
Yeah, but it's the worst round in the world.
Yeah. In the movies, there's always a big cat and mouse game where Q and M both want him to not carry that stupid little gun and carry the 380 Walter, which he does begrudgingly in the movies. So it becomes funny for him to turn that in.
Okay, the thing I've heard about the 25 is that for assassination, it's pretty good.
It's subsonic, right?
I don't know, but if you're going to shoot somebody in the head with it, it does not go through the head.
It rattles around in there.
It rattles around. And so for close assassination work, it might be the one to get. But I've also heard that Carhartt overalls can stop it.
I bet. No, it's hypersonic, so it makes a little bit of noise. Yeah, that's not a great round. That is not a self-defense round. But that's not what he's worried about. I think this is actually important. He's just not that concerned about a gunfight, because if he gets into the gunfight stage of the game, everything's gone pear-shaped, as our English friends would say, already.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. At least in this novel, he's not an action hero.
No.
This is not Arnold Schwarzenegger, having an AK-47 in either arm, just shooting bullets all over the place. This is about being clever and figuring out where to hide the money, which I thought was pretty cool, where he hides the money.
Awesome. I definitely learned something there. This is not a shoot 'em up, and he doesn't want to get in that situation, and his choice of weapon, I think, reflects that. But in his car, he does have a .357 Colt under the dash.
Now, wait a minute. It said there was a 45. See, if it's this, I was getting frustrated here. It says on page 98 of my edition, a long-barreled Colt Army Special 45. And I was looking it up, and I can't find a Colt Army Special 45.
They made an Army Special prior to World War I, and they put it in the running for the American sidearm, and the 1911 Colt semi-automatic pistol won that. And they didn't make very many of them. I said .357. I was wrong. In the book, it's a 45, and they did make some.
I don't think it's called an Army Special. I was having trouble finding it. I've seen one of these with the moon clip, so you can put 45s in it because it's a rimless cartridge.
This is what guys do, everybody. I'm so sorry.
I want to know what gun he had.
It's my understanding that they made a gun called the Army Special that was a limited run, 1,500 of them. I don't know. And then it was not accepted as that sidearm, and they didn't make it anymore. And then then they had the various, positive frames and all that stuff. We could put the 45 ACP in there. But he carries some iron in the car, and then he's got a pretty decent pistol under the pillow as well. But when he's out and about, it's the small one.
That little 25. You can look up that little Beretta 25. It's one of the first micro guns. Those little pocket things. You could hold it in your dinner jacket, in your tux, and it wouldn't make a wrinkle. In your chamois shoulder holster. Yeah. It's all aesthetic. More characterization. Bond is a foodie. He says, you must forgive me. I take a ridiculous pleasure in what I eat and drink. It comes partly from being a bachelor, but mostly from a habit of taking a lot of trouble over details. So his detail-orientedness as a spy makes him detailed in, coming up with the Vesper Martini and, picking exactly what food he's going to eat. Some of that stuff is in the movies. Yeah, and I thought there was a good chance missed here. Each meal could be his last, too. That's true.
You know, how many Big Macs do you eat if you're playing that sort of game that he plays?
Mm-hmm.
Fleming should have said that.
Yeah. I've seen somebody calculate the amount of alcohol he drinks.
Ugh.
He shouldn't be walking around.
I know some people who can do it. I ain't one of them.
No, you have to build it up. You have to have the right enzymes.
Right. I've been working on the isocaine powder instead of the alcohol. I've been working on that.
The iocane powder?
Iocane, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Some comments about his status as a 00 agent, as an agent that's licensed to kill. Vesper says something to him. All they knew was that I was to work with a 00. Of course, you're our heroes. I was enchanted. Bond frowned. It's not difficult to get a 00 number if you're prepared to kill people. That's all the meaning it has. It's nothing to be particularly proud of. And then he tells who it was that he killed. And then, of course, ends, how do you like the grated egg with your caviar? I don't know. I find that fun.
Yeah, I do too. I enjoy the book so much, but what is the thing?
So why? Why did you enjoy it?
It just lets me peek into a world that's not like my own. It's just total escapism, whether it's the richness of the food and the exotic locale and the high stakes game, you know, and he's not an action hero. So, you know, you can't watch Terminator. Well, if you're not a narcissist, if you're not a crazy person, you can't watch Terminator and think, you know, that you could do what Schwarzenegger is doing in that movie. But this, you know, you're like, yeah, I could be clever.
You could keep your cool in the casino and bankrupt the bad guy.
Yeah, I could play a 50-50 card game. I mean, and maybe win on the turn of a card just like he did. You know, it's about the escapism, I think. Reading about food, reading about hot girls, reading about, you know, supercharged Bentleys. It's just fun. It's a lark, you know?
Are you identifying with James Bond?
Yeah, I think we can some.
So what about him would you like to be?
All of it.
Because I did it all this last week. I've been playing the theme song, and, you know, when I'm driving on the highway, it's like I'm in my Bentley now, and I'm driving. What does it say? He drove his car hard but well.
Right.
I'm thinking that's how I drive my Hyundai.
Right. That's how Bentleys and women. That's Bond. No, all of it. You know. There you go. I've got a list of people that need to go. You know, if I get sanctioned, if I get my 00 number and I get sanctioned by the government, I got a list. You know, he asked for like Veuve Clicquot, I think, champagne, and the waiter says, "Oh no, you know, we have a bottle of this other vintage," and he says, "Oh yeah, give me that." I could drink that, especially if somebody else is picking up the tab. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm not as much of a food guy as he is.
No, I'm not either. And then there's the scene where those Bulgars try to kill him, and they don't. Well, is it because of anything he did? No. You know, they bumble and fumble and fail to kill him.
Well, because they don't have the attention to detail.
Right. But it's not like he had a 47-inch vertical leap and jumped up and grabbed an awning and flipped up on top of a building and out of harm's way or anything like that. I mean, he's not a superhero is what I'm saying.
Right. The Rock will never play James Bond, or shouldn't.
Right. Shouldn't, yeah.
Shouldn't. I thought Mr. Bean should have.
He may have. I'm sure he's done a Bond spoof.
The character's interesting to me, the detachment. So he gets very excited to explain the rules of the card game. You know, that's what's interesting to him.
Yep.
Is the details of the game. It says, Vesper listened attentively, but she also watched the look of abstract passion on Bond's face as he's describing how to do it. That's his character. That's what he's excited about.
Yeah, he's lost in it. It's such a dumb game, Karl.
Have you ever played it?
No, I would never play that game. At the end of page 63, he says, but in the end, Bond stubbed out his cigarette and called for the bill. It's the natural 8s and 9s that matter, and I must just see that I get more of them than he does. You can't do that.
I wrote in my book, how?
Right.
How are you going to do this, James? Well, he's got to sense somehow the mystical turnings of the universe.
Yeah.
Well, what's the strategy in the game? When you pick to make the bet, there's more strategy in blackjack.
Yeah, I think so.
Or at least there's a game to play. I guess there's a little more game to play because you know the percentages of when you should hit, when you should stand, when you should split.
Yeah, there's an aspect of that, standing or pushing on fives or whatever here in this game.
But I bet even blackjack, I think, if you think it through, you are not going to win more than the house.
No. In this game here, his opponent, the Chiffre, is the bank, which is an interesting turn. So one of the players can choose to be the bank, and then the house takes a drag out of every pot. So if the house is taking a drag, even if it's even odds between Banco and the players, the house is dragging, and you just can't win. I can't imagine playing this game. In the Austin Powers movie, there's a gambling scene that just shows how stupid and arbitrary this game is. It's almost not even satire, the gambling scene in the first Austin Powers movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a good point. So the Austin Powers movies, which are, I confess, I love them. They're hilarious. It's all from James Bond.
Yeah, they're awesome.
We went to Las Vegas a while back, and my wife and I didn't gamble at all.
I can't. It kills me. I can't do it.
I don't want to lose my money.
Mm-mm.
I don't get enough thrill from the win. And I know that most of the games, you're never going to beat the house. So if you actually want to win, that means you got to play poker. But then you're swimming with the sharks.
Yeah, I don't have the attention to detail that poker requires. The attention span. I can't do it.
And even there, it's a zero-sum game. The only way you can win is by being better than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have put a quarter in to one of the things where you win a car.
Right.
I didn't win the car.
That's not how you got that. Hyundai?
Hyundai? No.
Okay.
No, I had to pay for that one. Well, so he wins, spoiler, and he manages to take down Le Chiffre. And so I guess he won. I mean, there's a couple of twists and turns. Bond actually loses in the middle, but then he's bailed out by the U.S. Felix Leiter comes to his aid and bails him out because we got lots of money, I guess.
Yep.
So he actually only wins because he's got
Lend-Lease.
Yep.
It's his brains, but our money.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an accident, I would say.
You think he's making fun of the Americans?
I don't know if he's making fun. I suspect that Fleming saw England's role on the world stage as one of the Anglos with the greatest understanding of continental politics. They had a sort of erudition when it came to that sort of geopolitical stuff that their country cousins in North America couldn't and did not have. And while they didn't necessarily have all the military might or the cash, they had something there in that understanding and that experience, that long experience that the world needed, that the UN needed, that NATO needed, and that the United States needed.
So this is like Montgomery in World War II and Montgomery and Patton.
If you want to get crazy, maybe we should do this sometime. We could read Carol Quigley's, the Anglo-American Alliance.
I have not read that one.
Ugh. It's a little upsetting.
They're going to try to kill him in the middle of the game. I guess there's a little bit of action. He's got a silenced gun in his back in the middle of the game, and he manages to... All he does is he just shoves himself backwards and falls backwards and takes the guy by surprise. This is not an action scene. This is just cleverness.
A last-ditch effort to not get killed.
Yeah.
The Anglo-American establishment. I'm sorry. I had to double-check myself there. Yeah, we should read that.
So he wins. And, well, he wins. It looks like everything's good. But then there's 80 pages left.
I know. That's a problem.
That means that the winning wasn't the main part of the book.
Right. So just in terms of just reading a book, the story just trucks right along. Then the game is over and the bad guy doesn't have any money And then I look, and there's 80 more pages.
The game is not over.
The game isn't over, and the B plot isn't laid out in front of us like you would think. It's kind of there, but it's not.
It's kind of there.
It's almost $2.
It's almost $2.
But not quite.
I thought it was funny at the very end of chapter 13. Bond shrugged his shoulders. Sufficient unto that day had been its evil. He gazed for a moment into the mirror and wondered about Vesper's morals.
Yeah.
Now that the job's done.
Right. So they go out to eat. Rene Mathis sends a note to Vesper and says, "Can you come out to the entrance hall for a moment? I have news for your companion." And she leaves. Now, again, spoilers. When did everybody start getting so mad if you told them about something that happened in a book or a movie? When did that happen? I think that happened about 8 years ago.
That happened on Facebook.
Is it?
Yeah, so if I had seen the Red Wedding episode from Game of Thrones and I spoiled it for you who were waiting for the weekend to watch it, apparently I was a bad guy. So you had to put spoiler alerts in it.
Yeah.
And say, spoiler, everybody dies.
Right. Well, spoiler. The note's fake and she gets abducted. And then Bond's really mad at her. But I thought when she gets the note and she gets up and excuses herself from the table, I thought, why is he letting her do this? Why doesn't he accompany her? Why doesn't 1,000 other things? Like, he's right. She's a distraction. He's off his game. He's not perfect. His attention to detail's not there. The things that have kept him alive are gone. Because
of her, because she looks good.
Mm-hmm. It's a problem.
Yeah.
So he goes to rescue her, and they beat his nuts with a carpet beater, and he almost dies. There you go. Spoiler.
Well, there's a little more to it than that.
Oh, okay.
There's some things that are... Well, it was odd to me as I was reading, and I had forgotten the plot, is that they don't do anything bad to her.
They take him to death's door, and they're rescued in a strange way, and she's okay.
Yeah, something's up. Something's up. I want to go... So in my book, it is page 112. This is in the chapter 17. It is a trope. It's a word my daughter loves. In movies, maybe less so in books, for the bad guy to have his moment to monologue.
Mm-hmm.
It's made fun of in The Incredibles, which is a wonderful movie, in my opinion. At least the first one is.
Austin Powers,
too.
Yeah.
But they've got him on this chair. They've cut out the bottom of the chair. He's sitting in the chair naked, and they're smashing his testicles with a rope. "Perhaps I should explain," said Le Chiffre. "I intend to continue attacking the sensitive parts of your body until you answer my question. I am without mercy, and there will be no relenting. There is no one to stage a last-minute rescue, and there's no possibility of escape for you. This is not a romantic adventure story in which the villain is finally routed and the hero is given a medal and marries the girl." That's foreshadowing.
Why does he have a mid-Atlantic accent, Karl?
Because I have a mid-Atlantic accent.
Oh, you do?
I don't know. Well, you read it then.
He probably has a mid-Atlantic accent. I'm sorry.
I can't do accents.
I can't either. I love it.
"If you continue to be obstinate, you will be tortured to the edge of madness, and then the girl will be brought in, and we will set about her in front of you. If that's still not enough, you'll both be painfully killed, and I shall reluctantly leave your bodies and make my way abroad to a comfortable house which is waiting for me. There I shall take up a useful..." So it's just going on and on and on about you have no hope.
Mm. There's a little bit of this in the Raymond Chandler book we read. Oh my gosh, Mars, and what's the other half? A couple of the bad guys in there, they monologue a little bit. You're like, just kill him. Just start beating him.
They make fun of it in the Austin Powers when the kid's like, "Dad, just kill him."
Right. What are you doing?
"Scott, that's not how we do things."
Yeah.
Scott Evil.
Those are such great movies. They really are. So clever. He's rescued.
Yeah, probably because the guy talked too long. Smurf shows up.
They torture Bond into unconsciousness. And while Bond is unconscious, Smurf shows up and kills everybody except for Bond and Vesper. And so they escape. Yeah, meanwhile, Smersh, carves a Cyrillic character in the back of his hand, Bond's hand. And they get to go back to Old Blighty. And when they get back there, this is one of the best parts of the book, I think, Karl, is all the crisis of conscience here that Bond has on chapter 20, The Nature of Evil.
Mm-hmm.
He just can't figure out who the bad guys are anymore.
Yeah, he's talking to Mathis. Of course, patriotism comes along and makes it seem fairly all right, but this country, right or wrong, business is getting a little out of date. Today, we are fighting communism. Okay, if I'd been alive 50 years ago, the brand of conservatism we have today would have been damn near called communism, and we should have been told to go and fight that. History is moving pretty quickly these days, and the heroes and villains keep changing parts.
Where's the lie?
Yeah, that rings a little bit true. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. I mean, the things we were fighting in the 50s are the things that we are.
He can't figure out if he's on the right side or not, and wants to retire. And Mathis thinks he's just being stupid. Well, he says here, you mean to say that this precious Le Chiffre, who did his best to turn you into a eunuch, doesn't qualify as a villain? Anyone would think from the rot you talk that he had been battering your head instead of your... He gestured down the bed. You wait till M tells you to get after another Le Chiffre. I bet you'll go after him all right. What about Smersh? I can tell you don't like the idea of these chaps running around France killing anyone they feel has been a traitor to their precious political system. You're a bloody anarchist. There's this Orwell quote I was thinking about when I read this. I went and looked it up. The quote goes, "We sleep soundly in our beds because rough men stand ready in the night to visit violence on those who would do us harm."
Mm-hmm.
I went and looked that up. Orwell didn't say that. It's one of those misattribution things.
Lincoln didn't say, don't believe anything you see on the internet?
No. But that's a darn good quote. It was a guy named Richard Grenier in the Washington Times in 1993. But I think there have to be some blunt instruments, right? There has to be some number of people who can just do and act in this way. Am I wrong? The libertarians are going to email me again. Oh, my God.
Well, you could try it without them.
Right.
And see what happens.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you try them without them, the other guy that has some of those blunt instruments will have a political advantage that you just disarmed yourself from. I don't know. So Mathis in here says, look, somebody's got to do it. Maybe the lines are blurred. Maybe we don't know. But you don't get to pick. We don't have that luxury.
I thought interesting the motives that they finally lay out for Bond. I'll see how they go in the rest of the books when I finally read them. Bond is talking about Le Chiffre. If he was here now, I wouldn't hesitate to kill him, but out of personal revenge, and not, I'm afraid, for some high moral reason or for the sake of my country. They got one of our guys, I'm going to get, or they damaged me, I'm going to damage them.
Yeah. It's
not principle, it's human beings that he cares about.
Gosh, where does the principle end and the human being begin, though? What does that mean?
It means that he's not doing it for love of country, or at least not for the governmental system. It's because Le Chiffre did him wrong.
Mm. Isn't that why people fight? You go to war. Is anybody going to war because of the country, or they do it because of family and hearth and home?
Well, I don't know. They get drafted.
That's different. Conscription's different. They're doing it because, well, some of those people are doing it because they have no choice. But those who have a choice, they're not doing it for the country. Even if they say that, isn't it because they value the personal in the country? I don't know.
You don't think it's for a political platform? I mean, why would you fight for communism?
Will to power?
Across the world, which in fact they did. That's not hearth and home.
Right. I don't know.
Will to power stuff.
We may be talking about two different things. So you have somebody that's conscripted or even enlists in December 8th of 1941. They're going to be a private soldier, There's no political power there. Does Bond have any prospect of any political power? I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
Do they have just a will to power? Would somebody like Bond just accept that job just because of what they can get away with? He's got the 00 thing. He can go do things other people can't do.
Why would he take the job? I think the reason is probably similar to why he likes the card game. He's fascinated by the game.
Mm.
It's not Queen and Country.
Yeah.
It's like a chess player. nerding out over the game that doesn't really matter and isn't even personal.
Yeah.
The ending's hard.
Super hard.
So you have this young man, I guess he's not that young, and he falls in love with Vesper.
They fall in love.
He makes up his mind to marry her. Gosh. Only it's not terrible. Should we spoil it?
Yeah. She's a double agent.
Yeah, always was.
But she has a conscience. And she kills herself.
Yep. Yeah, so she was a double agent. She was in on it from the beginning. She was facilitating that moment they were going to kill him in the casino. But she decides she can't go on. They've got her old boyfriend somewhere in jail.
She does everything she does because of love.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Which is probably a mistake.
Ooh. Interesting.
In this business.
We're going to pick this apart a little bit.
Well, it's what gets Bond into trouble. It's why he doesn't see the note as being suspicious and then lets himself get suckered off in that car chase.
Yeah, she's not kidnapped guys. She just gets in the back of the car with the dude. I mean, she's in on all of it.
Uh-huh. So this is his almost downfall, is her. That would be like, let's go back to the example of gambling or the chess game. It's like if you fall in love with your queen in chess. It sounds ridiculous, right? You're laughing because it's so stupid. You wouldn't fall in love with a piece on the board that at some point you should sacrifice.
Yep.
If it gets you position or better material. But no, I can't get rid of my queen. And then you lose. Or you're playing roulette, which is another zero-sum game of chance, which you just play for the thrill. You fall in love with the red color. You're going to play red.
It's as good as reason as anything else.
I suppose, but
in that game,
it makes you not be rational. And we saw at the beginning of the book that for Bond, it is his rationality and his attention to detail that has saved him so far in this job. Well, Vesper Lynd he has a non-rational attachment to her, and he doesn't pay attention to detail.
Oh, gosh, it's terrible. So he's damaged, right? He's damaged in some way. He has that conversation with Mathis, and they're trying to figure out, what his motivations are. He takes some more damage here. Like there's probably a little sociopathy here or something. It's just going to push him farther over into that. This is a great end to the first book in the series.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he thought about it this way. Like, I want to make this guy who's already a cold killer more damaged, more calculating, more detached. He starts off with the end of the backstory essentially here.
Yeah, and the last line is pretty hard. So remember at the beginning, he had in his mind called her a bitch because she was going to get in the way. This is Bond not having a thoroughly enlightened attitude about women. I was putting that in modern parlance. He's a cold guy. He's a spy. The woman's trouble. Okay, so he reads her the love note that she writes him as she's taken the sleeping pills and is dying. And
so brutal.
Yeah. Bond threw the letter down. Mechanically, he brushed his fingers together. Suddenly, he banged his temples with his fists and stood up. For a moment, he looked out towards the quiet sea. Then he cursed aloud one harsh obscenity. His eyes were wet, and he dried them. And now he's done. While he was getting through to London, he calmly reviewed the facts of Vesper's letter. They all fitted the little shadows and question marks of the past 4 weeks, which his instinct had noticed, but his mind rejected. All stood out now like signposts. He saw her now only as a spy. And you go down to the end. A telephone rang and Bond snatched up the receiver. He was on to the link, the outside liaison officer who was the only man in London he might telephone from abroad, the only in dire necessity. He spoke quietly into the receiver. "This is 007 speaking. This is an open line. It's an emergency. Can you hear me? Pass this on at once. 3030 was a double, working for Redland." "Yes, damn it," I said, "was. The bitch is dead now."
Yeah.
End.
Yeah.
Interesting. So this is the ending of the novel, and it's kind of a brutal ending, and it gives you this arc of the character from the beginning where the woman is troubled and he wants nothing to do with her, to where he's ready to marry her, to where he finds out she'd betrayed him, and she's dead, and we have it come full circle, and that's the end. And it's a very sharp bit of writing.
Yeah.
So the most recent Casino Royale, he says the same line, but they can't let it go at that.
Oh, yeah? I haven't seen it.
The Daniel Craig one. So M comes on, and it's, what's her name? The lady that plays M.
Dame Judi Dench.
I don't know. She's good.
Yeah.
Either that or she's just playing herself all the time. But she says, you know, James, she must have loved you. She must have known she was going to her death. They make her more noble
Right.
than she was in the book, where she's a double agent from the beginning. A double agent who fell in love.
Yeah. If you care about the spy junk, you can kind of go read up on this Cold War era. And the Soviets ran circles around the West.
What's the Cold War? They might not remember.
What's the Cold War? There were these two forces. One was good and one was bad. And
the bad one's called Redland.
One had a virtuous economic system and the other one didn't. And yeah, a bunch of jockeying for world political hegemony after World War II.
Yeah,
between the Soviets and the Eastern Bloc countries, which would have been, I don't know what, the former Yugoslavia, Poland,
Bulgaria,
Romania, all those had all those hairy ladies at the '84 Olympics, and then essentially the NATO countries.
Lots of proxy wars.
Lots of proxy wars, lots of technological races, whether it's atomic or nuclear power or weapons or space secrets or political maneuver.
What happened is Hiroshima put at least thus far, and hopefully it continues because it'd be terrible, has put the kibosh on huge wars. No rational government is going to start one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least they haven't. Nobody's used one in anger since 1945. So the only way you can fight is in Vietnam.
Right.
You know, or in Angola.
Right.
Trying to get an edge wherever you can, and it's not going to be the full war because we don't want that. It's going to be, you talked about the Olympics, getting the judges on your side so that Serge Redding doesn't get the gold medal for his 502-pound press.
Right. Oh, you think that happened?
I remember watching it.
Well, I know he didn't get it, and that Alexiev's press is worse, but...
Well, I remember watching the Olympics, and you could just see that it was a joke. The Soviet judge would always... It'd be a perfect gymnastics routine, and the Soviet judge would be like, 2.
Yeah. Well, I remember that, but I thought... I was hoping you had, evidence specifically about...
Oh, I've seen Alexiev's press. It's a push press.
It is. But do you think there was do you think the fix was in, bro?
I would not be surprised. Redding didn't live very much longer than that. Died in the Philippines.
All right, guys. So, what is it, 72 Olympics? I think it's the 72 Olympics.
Somebody will know more than I do.
I think that's right.
Redding fell in love with a Filipino girl, and stayed there, and then died not too much after that.
Yeah, Serge Redding presses 502 pounds. Prettiest thing you ever did see. Sets the world record.
For 5 minutes.
For a strict press, and then Vasily Alexiev comes in there and presses an extra kilo, and it's a push press. He bends the knee, he kicks it, and he's given 3 white lights, and it's bogus. You don't even need an instant replay to see that he shouldn't have gotten that, and then set the world record. And then the press gets thrown out after that. It's not even an Olympic event anymore because of the difficulty of judging, supposedly, and it should still be there.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's moved weight like that since. It's amazing.
We're all worthless and weak.
This men of power.
Yeah.
I'm glad I read this. This is not a great book.
No, it's a fun book.
It's a fun book. I thought the prose was pretty bad, too. I was like, this isn't even really great writing here.
I'm interested to see how it develops. It was sparse. It might be by design. It might be Fleming's just not so good yet. I was thinking, Terry Pratchett, if you read Terry Pratchett, he wrote 41, 42 Discworld novels, and the first ones are okay, and the last ones are awesome. He gets better at doing it. It might be a stylistic choice by design. Bond is supposed to be a bit of a cold fish. You don't get much of his own thoughts.
Well, that's okay. He can be a taciturn, man of few words.
Well, I mean, take the Raymond Chandler book. You know what Philip Marlowe is thinking all the time. Well, it's first person, and he tells you. But in a third-person book, you might have a point where Bond thought to himself, I really need to get another martini. That sort of thing.
Right.
There isn't very much of that. It's kind of distant.
Yeah, Bond needs to be a little bit of a black box, for sure. But the prose, there's not really a lot of story here. It's the treachery of this woman and this betting millions of francs on a coin flip. But I love it. I've read this 3 or 4 times probably.
Is he a hero or an anti-hero?
In this book, he's neither. He doesn't really do anything here. He doesn't save the girl. He wins a coin flip card game. He gets his ass kicked by the bad guy. He wrecks his supercar.
Mm-hmm. It's almost funny.
Yeah.
None of your expectations going in happen.
Yeah. He's inept all throughout this. There are 2 assassination attempts on him, and one of them he thwarts through his own, force of will and a willingness to act, and the other one they just don't do it. They're not successful. He's almost a bumbler here.
So here's a question: is this an artifact of this novel, or is Fleming telling us something about actual spy work? That sometimes you just bumble and you manage to survive?
I think he probably is.
It's not superheroes out there, It's
so weird. I've never read anything about game theory other than just, a long-form newspaper or magazine article here or there. We should read something about game theory. And the fact that countries do this kind of thing, that there's what was it? Was it the Rosenbergs, the spy couple?
Mm-hmm.
Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. The fact that they do this stuff is really interesting because I do think a lot of it is luck. Can the Soviets turn or locate and train and indoctrinate the Rosenbergs and have them successfully operate long enough to get what they need from them without compromising their other assets? They're lucky if they're able to do it. But these countries probably have to do it because the other one will. It's nothing that makes sense, but you almost, if you're if you're playing big politics, you probably have to do it, even though it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, everybody seems to do it.
Everybody's doing it, bro.
I'm remembering, I can't remember the guy's name. There was a case of I think he was in the suburbs of D.C., one of the biggest spy cases in recent history. He was a Russian agent, but he was family man, Opus Dei, Catholic guy. You wouldn't have expected. And there he's passing secrets to the Russians. There's all the cases of the people in academia with ties to China.
Holy smoke. That's a pandemic.
A senator's driver for 30 years was a Chinese agent. I won't name the senator. You can look it up. And I got to presume we have them too. If we don't, what are we doing? That's a good question. This is spycraft. This is probably, by most people's standards, immoral. Because it involves lying and other bad things. So if you're going to be a good country, do you have to have spies?
The other ones are going to do it.
The other ones are going to do it. Does that mean you have to do it?
They're going to do it. Probably.
I had a friend of my brother's worked in NSA.
Gross.
The only thing he ever said to us was, you really don't want to know. You just don't want to know. This was in the 90s. I haven't heard from him in a long time. I don't know that I do want to know. I think I'd rather just read novels and have the enjoyment of having it all wrapped up when I get to the end of the book.
I talk too much. I'm impatient. There's no way I could do any of that kind of stuff. It's crazy.
Well, you'd have to imagine the sort of person you'd have to be that sort of, I don't mean the guy sitting in the office in Langley reading through, reports or translating.
Right.
To be an active intelligence asset. Yikes.
Those people have to be compromised, right? Like blackmailable.
You'd have to compartmentalize a lot of stuff. I don't know. I don't want to be a James Bond. I want to imagine I'm him and then not be him.
Right.
The theme song's good lifting music.
Oh, it's so good. It's great. We could do a show on that.
On James Bond music.
Yeah, go to onlinegreatbooks.com/podcast and join the mailing list. And October 13th, we'll be opening enrollment again. And you can join us there and read some stuff that's better than this. Maybe not more fun. Maybe more fun. I'm reading De-Anima right now, Karl.
Yeah, is it fun?
It's a special kind of fun.
So, I think I said this in the last one. I did a seminar on prior analytics. And the book's not fun. The book is genius. It's the invention of logic. This is Aristotle. If he only wrote that book, that would have been enough to put him top of the list.
Yep.
It's all sorts of stuff that's obvious once you know it, but wasn't obvious before you read it. But it's not fun to read. It's like a lecture notes where you can't see the chalkboard. But then it was the famous Seminar 1, and we talked about prior analytics, and the seminar was a blast. It really was fun. It was as fun as James Bond.
Okay.
You know, to figure out what is logic, what's a proposition, why do we even care about this stuff, what are the limits of the truth claims we make, you know? It was exciting. You read better stuff, you have more fun. I think that's actually true. It might not be fun while you're reading the thing. I will make a parallel to weightlifting. It's not always fun. The deadlift is not always fun.
No.
But being strong sure is fun.
Always. I'm never like, I'm too damn strong. That pickle jar, I just opened it right up.
Come and join us. But prior analytics is probably the hardest thing we're ever going to read. I think it's harder than metaphysics.
So hard.
But a lot of the stuff is fun. You know, Prometheus Bound is, people will read that thing and then they'll just write, oh my God, when it'll blow their minds that this ancient drama has so much that speaks to them.
Yep.
I love Aeschylus. Herodotus is great fun. It's fun. It's just not necessarily the same kind of fun as James Bond.
Aeschylus is better than Shakespeare. Sorry.
I'm not going to fight you.
Yes, that's right. Is it right?
I think that's true.
All right.
Aeschylus is really good. I don't know. Let me read Hamlet again, and I'll see if I still agree.
Yeah. Hamlet's the best of the best. Yeah.
Full of cliches, though.
Wasn't then. Yeah, that's one of the things about like the hardboiled detective novel and the spy novel we just read is that they read like cliches and they read as corny, but they weren't when they kicked the door down and put these things out the first time. This was fresh. Can you imagine picking this up in 1953? It would have been just piping hot, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's fun to go back. If you've been a consumer of popular culture for a long time, you don't know the origins.
Yeah.
It's fun as kind of intellectual archaeology to go back and find the origins. But the other thing about it is the originators, they're probably pretty good books.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Raymond Chandler wouldn't have originated Hard-Boiled Detectives unless his books were good.
Yeah, somebody else would have.
Nobody would have made fun of it if it wasn't good.
I just looked up Rosenberg, Ethel, and Julius. They were arrested in 1950, convicted in 51, and executed in 53. So the United States was just starting to be aware of how weird and pervasive this stupid Cold War thing was going to be when this came out. Can you imagine?
Ugh. I bet it leapt off the presses.
Yeah, they those Rosenbergs, go look that up and read a little bit about it. It's crazy. They pretty much gave away the atomic bomb program. You can probably thank them for that mutually assured destruction, which might not have been a bad thing, Karl.
Might not.
You know, if you watch these, you probably thought this. Watch all this political unrest that we have going on now, and there'll be two groups of people on the streets of Portlandia or whatever fighting, but they're all pulling their punches. You know, like sticks and stones. You know, there's no samurai sword out there, or no IEDs. we're starting to see it sort of escalate. But it's been really interesting how like both sides really don't want it to escalate. They want it to be a strange proxy war. You know, they want it to be Vietnam, essentially. They don't want it to go nuclear. I mean, that's a phrase we use now, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want it to escalate all the way up. It's really interesting to see how, again, it's game theory stuff, right? Like here are these two opposing forces somehow have agreed upon a convention where, you know, this kind of conflict is okay, but this other kind is a bridge too far. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, so you want to gain an edge without losing too much. And there are acceptable ways to gain the edge.
Yeah, and if you go outside of that convention, then that opens up all other options for the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want them to do that because the first actor, if you go nuclear, wins.
Let's say it's like if you got in a fist fight when you're a kid, you know, there's fist fights and then there's actual fights.
Right.
The fist fight, you're going to have closed fists, you're going to punch, there's no gouging, you know?
Right.
Don't go to the nuts because that's a different kind of fight. If you're just like punching each other in the head, boys will be boys.
Yeah, a little weird boxing thing.
But if you start gouging, then somebody's going to end up dead.
You ever watch that show Deadwood, Karl?
No, I did not. Everyone loved it, and so therefore I didn't.
I watched something you haven't watched. There's a fight between the captain and Dan in Deadwood, and that's what fights actually look like. And it's brutal. They're trying to gouge each other's eyes out, and, you know, 2 men enter, 1 man leave. You know?
Mm-hmm.
We really aren't seeing that right now out here on the streets.
Fisticuffs is what we're seeing.
In 2020. Yeah, not even that. It's just sort of, it looks like 2 like chimpanzee tribes, like one on one side of the river and the other on the other side of the river, like throwing poo at each other and like yelling. It's really odd. I don't know what it is, but I need to read more about game theory and see if I can't figure something out about this.
What are we going to read next?
I don't know. You want to read that chunk of Fichte?
Fichte? Fun to say. Fichte. Yeah, so Fichte's addresses to the German people, we'll see how far we get. My copy's 300 pages. I don't know if I'll get all the way.
Yahtzee.
It's influential for American public education because Horace Mann, I believe that's his name, one of the founders of compulsory public education in the United States, got his ideas from Prussia. And Prussia got their ideas from Fichte after they got their butts kicked by the French. It's already pretty hot stuff, the 40 pages that I've gotten through.
Yeah, you want to just read that second address, which is the general nature of the new education?
Sure.
Cut it down, since I'm having to read De Anima. Holy smoke.
It's fun.
On the soul. What's the soul, Karl?
It is the actuality of a body capable of having life. Aren't you reading De Anima? It's the first actuality, not the second actuality.
Yeah, he's not real fond of just saying it.
You don't think that's just saying it?
Yeah, but that's you saying it. Uncle Ari is not real fond of just saying bullet point. Here it is.
Maybe he had PowerPoints and they just haven't survived.
You know, he wrote these laws of thought, but nowhere does he actually state them cleanly and number them.
That's true. But it's so good that people dig into it anyway.
For sure. All right, that's enough of this. If you like spy stories, if you like the Bond movies, you should go read the book. It's short anyway. It's 170 pages or something like that. Of all the things that we've read, as much as I love these, Karl, I've been reading them on and off since I was probably 12 years old. The quality of stuff I have been reading is going up, and that has made my opinion of the Fleming book go down over years. That makes me a little sad.
You've lost your innocence.
I have. Aristotle took my innocence. Has anybody said that before? I'm sure they have. They've been talking about him a long time. Well, there's another Online Great Books podcast, guys. We know how many of you download this. You're not all listening to the Music and Ideas show. You should go listen to the Music and Ideas podcast. Go to onlinegreatbooks.com and click on the podcast tab at the top of the thing, and you'll see both of the shows there, and you can go and subscribe to it. You may have to go to our website to find it because iTunes isn't real keen on making it easy to find there. I have noticed.
Yeah, I think we've done some shows that are pretty good. We're kind of hitting our stride with producer Trent taking the third chair. So I really liked our opera show. I really liked our Frank Sinatra show. We have put one in the can on Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, which is, if you don't know who those people are, you better go listen to it.
I sure enjoy doing it, whether or not it's any good or not. You go be the judge. Hey, thank you guys so much for listening, and be watching for a new enrollment to open on October 13th of 2020. We'll talk to you next Thursday.